And some of the biggest externalities are in the way we produce and distribute food. Now, if we did an honest analysis of the real costs of industrial agriculture, the real costs of poisons in our food, the real costs of GMOs, the real costs of monopolies on seed through patents, we wouldn't be able to afford the system that's destroying the planet, wiping out farmers, and farming is still the most significant livelihood on the planet, and in my view, the most significant livelihood for the future. At the Navdanya farm, at any point of time, we have 20 to 25 international interns, PhDs in mathematics, MBAs, people from Wall Street, from the information technology sector, coming to learn organic farming. Because that's where they want their future to be. After all, how long can you bet on the global casino and feel rewarded and think you're living a meaningful life? In the period of globalization, where the laws of globalization and the values for globalization were not set through democracy, they were not set through dialogue, they were not set through multilateralism. A text was prepared. It was called the Dunkel Draft Text, because Dunkel was the Director General of the GATT. We called it the DDT, Dunkel Draft Text. In it is an intellectual property treaty. Monsanto is on record saying we wrote this treaty to own seeds and create patents on life. The agriculture agreement was written by the Cargill vice president deputed to represent the United States. So I say they should be called Monsanto treaties and Cargill treaties. They shouldn't be called intellectual property rights, trade-related, agriculture agreement. There's nothing about agriculture in the agriculture agreement. It's just market grab. Yeah. And how do you grab markets? With $400 billion of subsidies. If that was added into the costs of farming, local would be cheaper, not the globalized dumping. If the 270,000 farmers' lives that have been taken with seed monopolies in cotton in India, 95% of the cotton is now owned and controlled by Monsanto. And they collect royalties. Those royalties are paid by farmers through their very lives. 270,000 farm suicides, concentrated largely in the cotton belt. So what we try and do is build alternatives. When I heard about the idea of patenting life, I said, that's a bit crazy, because life creates itself. That's why it's life. It's not a machine. It's not like these mics that someone had to assemble from outside. Seed has evolved over millennia. And there's a very famous case that has just taken place in the US. At the end of it, what is a GMO? A genetically modified organism. It's basically shooting a gene, largely a toxic gene, into the cells of an existing plant. But the plant has evolved over millennia. The soya bean came to the world from Eastern Asia. But Monsanto has a patent. And they sued a farmer who bought soya bean in the open market and planted the seeds on his farm. Very famous case called Monsanto versus Baumann. The courts ruled that Monsanto has created that seed and has owned that seed. So I've created the slogan saying GMO now must mean God move over. Now, whatever is your version of creation and whatever is your understanding of a god or goddesses, we can't afford unemployment of the divine. Somehow, we have to reconnect the sacred to our everyday values, because that's where limits come from. But not only do limits come from there, our understanding of potential comes from there. I was very fortunately, last night I was releasing the book of the Karmapa. I won't go into the details about the Karmapa and who he is. There's a Dalai Lama and then there's a young Karmapa, 26-year-old, brilliant. He's just written a book called The Heart is Noble. But it is the ultimate text for social transformation in our times. He was a spiritual leader talking about how the current food system creates hunger, how our view of the earth as dead matter creates the ecological crisis, how the idea of gender identities and other cultural identities being fixed is at the root of so much violence. So we need values that shift from the idea of mechanistic reductionism as the foundation of science to the new foundations of the emerging sciences, the quantum theory on which I worked, non-separability, non-locality. We know the world is interconnected. Or the new sciences of agroecology. From domination to equality and the respect for all human beings and all beings. From exploitation creating a pseudo-competition. Why are the shirts we buy so cheap? I don't buy shirts, I only wear hand-woven saris. But why are the shirts so cheap? Because the farmers who grew the cotton were killed through debt. This was taken then to Bangladesh and China, and then the women get burnt in fires. And then you get cheap clothing, just like you get cheap food, because the costs have not been internalized. So we need to start talking the truth about costs. And we can only talk the truth about costs if we understand the interconnections, if we understand at a systems level what the food system is, what the clothing system is, what the financial system is. And without that deeper understanding, we will not be able to address the problem of 1 billion people hungry. The problem that FAO just released on World Food Day, which was dedicated to food waste. They're saying bad food is costing the world $4.3 trillion through obesity. It's not food. I think we need to separate. We have labeling, we had nutrition labeling. In the US, they are fighting GMO labeling. India, we have it, you have it. Most democracies have labeling. The country that prides in being the biggest, highest, largest democracy can't afford food labeling. But I think we need a new labeling of food and non-food. Because so much of what's being eaten is not worthy of being eaten. High fructose corn syrup isn't a sugar. They're faking dal. We live on dal. They're now creating an iDal, thinking if you can have an iPhone, an iPad, an iWad, then you can have an iDal. And now, of course, they're trying to fake the seed. But seed is that which renews on its own, bija. That's the Hindi and Sanskrit word for it. Bija, ja is life. Bija, that from which life arises on its own forever and ever and ever. On its own. Doesn't need Monsanto's GMC, the toxic genes, BT, herbicide resistant. And what we are finding, I started seed saving and started Navdani, and just with a very humble love for the seed, just got to protect every seed we find, just save them. It's 3,000 varieties of the 200,000 varieties of rice we used to have. But as time passed, we realized by encouraging farmers to use their native seeds, they were actually producing more. They were producing more food. Because when we count commodities as food, then all you get is monocultures of commodities. Only 10% of the corn and soya grown in the world is feeding people. The rest is driving cars and torturing animals. I don't like to call it animal feed because cows wanted grass. That's why they call herbivores. They definitely weren't carnivores, and they didn't want that mad cow diet, where cows were being ground up to feed cows, dead animals. We've received a lot of incomplete phrases in this period of globalization, and you from the media will have to do some work to complete them. For example, India, which has been around 10,000 years, we are called an emerging country. You don't emerge after 1995. We are repeatedly told that intensification will feed the world, but they never clarify intensification of what. Intensification of fossil fuels actually creates a very inefficient system. 10 units are put in to get 1 unit out. Ecological systems use 1 unit to produce 2 units of food. That's the way we can double the production of food without harming the planet. We've done it in Vandana. And we said yield per acre only measures the commodity production of something that goes off anonymously on container ships, and its only value is the weight. But food becomes us. So it should be more than weight we measure. It should be taste, it should taste good, it should be nutrition, it should be quality. And all those values have disappeared. Not just in food, but other matters too. So instead of yield per acre, which only measures that what leaves the ecosystem, leaves the land, leaves the community, gets traded globally, we measure health per acre, nutrition per acre. And when we intensify biodiversity rather than fossil fuels and toxics, we actually get more nutrition per acre. And this is going to be the new breakthrough in issues of food security. Of course, that reductionist mind carries on. We've just had to launch a campaign recently. Mr. Gates has emerged as the biggest philanthropy in agriculture. He's pushing the green revolution in Africa, and suddenly find he wants genetically modified bananas for Indian women so they don't die in childbirth because of anemia and iron deficiency. I did very quick calculations. Banana is very good, but it produces only 0.44 milligrams of iron. Other foods and other crops and other biodiversity give you 56, 68. So we are taking something 6,000% less efficient, maybe doubling it, even tripling it. It will still have very little iron, and then saying this is going to be the iron source. India. And of course, then the aid agencies will join in, and that'll be in the diet, and before you know it, GMO bananas. So we've said no GMO bananas. Sorry, thank you. Women have the knowledge. We have the biodiversity. We are going to grow the richest foods in every kitchen garden. We are going to cook the best of foods in every kitchen. And our knowledge and our diversity can't be brushed aside as if it doesn't exist. Our heads are not empty, the land is not empty. We've had terra madre replaced by terra nullius once before. Now is the time for terra madre to be at the central value of what it means to be human. It's only if we realize we are Earth citizens that we can be fully human. Human rights are a derivative of the rights of the earth. And I think that change is happening so fast, it's so wide, which is why out of the blue an Occupy movement can be created of the 1% versus the 99%. And of course, a surveillance system is being built to try and make sure that the 99% doesn't have its way. But 1%. A 1% rule has never lasted. It must be 100% participation, not just of every human being, but every species on this planet. That's the Earth democracy we need to create. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Your applause. We thought global citizen was already something good. I think Earth citizen is something better. Thank you very much for sharing your thoughts with us. And I think we're going to look at what we eat, certainly today, in a different manner. And maybe we can actually take some of your ideas into our home environment. Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, as you know, throughout the Global Media Forum, there is a competition, actually starting beforehand, because we're also talking about photography. Photographers from all around the world have brought us their results of how they see sustainability. And you, about 6,000 of you, have voted on the 300 photos that have been handed in. And if we can have the figures now. So if you click on one page, thank you. 300 photos were handed in for the Click Award. More than 40 countries were participating. And as I said, 6,000 votes. And now, ladies and gentlemen, of course, you're entitled to see the results. And the third prize goes to a photo called Love It Renewable. The view from my window as seen by Mohammed Hossein Hosseini in Germany, and he's taken a photo in Magdeburg, and this is what he saw. Love it, renewable. It's quite amazing. The name Hosseini would associate something Arabic, and we now have a German in Cairo who's taken the photo that got the second place, the local merchant in Cairo by Klaus Vonnemann of Germany, taken in Cairo, and this is what we would like to see now. Those oranges look like one could almost bite into it, and I'm very sure that Mrs. Shiva would be happy if we were feeding on these, if they had been produced in an ecological way. Of course, number one, the winner is solar energy in the city. Alan J. Quesada took a photo in Singapore City in Singapore. And we have heard the foreign minister yesterday who pointed out that some architectural development was taking place. That is in fact the building that he was talking about, but that is not the reason why this photo was chosen as number one. You can see solar plays a big role in Singapore's development. Last but not least, and I'm not quite sure whether that's the reason why so many of you are here, you know that of those people who vote from here, we will always find one person who will get something special as a reward. And this year it is, and I hope that he's here, the name Egypt has already been mentioned, is Tarek Attia here in this room. Tarek Attia? He left this morning. Does Tarek have a representative here? Shaido. Well, in this case, just take courage and walk over, because Tarek has actually won a DVD player. And I think the two of you can suss out how to get it to the winner. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, this was a bit of housekeeping, and I think the next year we're going to have a Click Award again. But before we can think about the next year, we're going to conclude, and who better to conclude than the boss himself, Erik Bettermann, having been hailed already so many times on Monday. I'm not going to do that, but all I can say, it was absolutely lovely working with and for you, Mr. Bettermann.
all the people standing in the back, take a seat, because I have the intention to speak now for 1 hour. Ladies and gentlemen, dear guests, dear friends, Vandana Shiva's speech, and I have to apologize to her that she left, but she's working for the Deutsche Welle, the Hindi program, and that was foreseen for 1:45. Vandana Shiva's speech makes the end of this year's Global Media Forum. She has given us, I think, so important food for thoughts to take home with us. A year ago, we could not have foreseen how timely the topic of this forum would be. But obviously, I think we hit a central nerve. More than 2,500 participants from, over 100 countries came to Bonn to discuss economics, growth, values, and the role that media play. Many competent, highly respected people shared their different standpoints and ideas for action in regard to this very central issue of globalization. I'll name just a few on behalf of all those who spoke. Vandana Shiva, we have just heard, Avram Noam Chomsky, and our German Foreign Minister Guido Westerwelle. Throughout the workshops and plenary discussions, they all gave convincing arguments supporting their points of view. All of this shows us how important it is to consider a variety of opinions and to try to reach a consensus. It shows how important it is to develop an internationally binding set of values to enable a sustainable economy for the sake of the world and for the sake of future generations. Creating such a set of binding values takes us to the question of fundamental human rights, which expressly guarantees the right to free speech and freedom of opinion. It's a pity to say, right now, the Turkish government is oppressing that universal human rights. But I have also an actual second example. In Chad, a Deutsche Welle correspondent, who is at the same time the Secretary General of the Chadian Journalists Association, has been detained for weeks on very flimsy grounds. Just yesterday, I found out that he has fallen seriously ill in prison. He was imprisoned along with 2 other journalists. The people in Chad, and I would be truly grateful if the Global Media Forum would direct a petition to the government of Chad calling for their immediate release. If you allow me, because we like to stream it, if you're supporting this idea, can I ask you to stand up? Thank you so much. It's not on behalf of me and not on behalf of the Deutsche Welle, and that he is a correspondent of us. That is a symbol that we stay together in solidarity if we don't judge everything what the people is doing. But the freedom of journalism and the freedom of media is one of the worldwide human rights. Thank you so much. Ladies and gentlemen, it's a part of democratic, civic, social debate to sometimes argue vehemently about existential matters. The media play as an essential part in how those arguments are distributed. The established media and social media alike bear a large responsibility. Together, the two are increasingly stronger force. Social media channels have ever more important role in shaping people's and personal opinions, and in turn, in the formation of public opinion. As I heard throughout the conference, we often underestimate the importance of people as key drivers of change. And for these people, and for that, they must be well informed. Social media combine information and participation, transcending borders and spanning cultures and languages. Therefore, they will be the focus of next year's Global Media Forum. The title in 2014 will be, write it down, Challenges for the Media, from Information to Participation. For those being a little bit slowly, once more. Challenges for the media, from information to participation. And I warmly welcome you to join us again here at the World Conference Center in Bonn from June 30th to July the 2nd, 2014. 30th June to 2nd July 2014. Ladies and gentlemen, over the past 60 years, Deutsche Welle, the international German broadcaster, has made many friends and forget many partnerships on every continent. Many of them were our guests here in Bonn for the last 3 days. Together, we celebrated our anniversary, 6 decades of Germany's international broadcaster in dialogue with the world. It was important to us to show you our respect and how much we value our relationship with you. And I would like to thank you for the great collaboration and good friendship you have given us over the years and have shown us especially during the last 3 days. I'm very glad that you could be our guests at the Global Media Forum in our anniversary year. I would prefer to name now everyone, but more than 2,500, exactly, I think 2,553, is this right? That is a little bit too much, but I want to mention some persons which have distributed also with their engagement for the success of this Global Media Forum in the panels and during the discussion. I have already spoken about the speakers, but there was a lot of people also, friends, some of you, which have organized the panels and the discussion in the surroundings. On behalf of all of you, I want to name the trainer at the International Academy of Journalism and head of investigative research at La Nation, San Jose, Costa Rica, Nina Segnini. Gilberto Marcos Antonio Rodriguez, Professor of International Relations, Federal University of ABC, Sao Paulo, Brazil. Vasu Gounden, Founder and Executive Director, African Center for the Constructive Resolution of Dispute, from Durban in South Africa. Malika Joseph, Executive Director, Regional Center for Strategic Studies, Colombo, Sri Lanka. Tripurari Sharan, Director General of Dordeshan, India, New Delhi. And last not least, my friends from the Wartburg College in Iowa in the United States. I thank especially Dr. Penny Peer, on behalf of all of them, the Chair, Communication Arts Department, responsible for education and training of the coming generation in the United States. I named those people. I'm showing you that everyone being here during the last 3 days came from all parts of the world. That is a wonderful situation, and I hope that all of you have enjoyed it. Ladies and gentlemen, a conference like this wouldn't be possible without the many people who work so hard to prepare and organize it. By the way, I will give you the secret. The CEO has done only a little bit. I would like to thank especially those collaborators of the Deutsche Welle who has made this conference possible. And if you allow me, I would like to thank everyone, and especially my collaborators who had a part in making the conference such a success. On behalf of all of them, a lot of people, I want to say thank you to Conny Zimmer, which has guided us through this conference in a very charming way, and I hope you have had a pleasure to follow her advices. Conny, thank you very much for everything. I would also like to thank all the organizations who partnered with us to arrange the 50 interesting and diverse workshops that form backbone of the conference. The forum wouldn't be possible without our co-hosts, the Foundation for International Dialogue of the Sparkasse in Bonn. Sparkasse, translated as a saving bank. That's the foundation of the Saving Bank in Bonn. And without the support of the Federal Foreign Office, the Federal Ministry for Economy and Cooperation and Development, the European Regional Development Fund, the German state of North Rhine-Westphalia, the North Rhine-Westphalian Foundation for Environment and Development, and you have enjoyed it, especially yesterday evening, the city of Bonn. My gratitude goes to each of you. I would like to close on a personal note. We have heard it so many times. This is the last time I will be speaking to the Global Media Forum in my role as Director General of the Deutsche Welle. My term ends on September 30 this year. After that, Peter Limburg will take over as head of Deutsche Welle. Years after years, since 6 years, I looked always forward to the Global Media Forum, because I count myself a little bit as a father of this conference. And I remember quite well that 6 years ago, I said here in the publicity in Bonn, we want to establish a media Davos at the Rhine. That means, you know, Davos, the World Economic Forum. We want to do it here as a media forum in Bonn. And with your help and with your interest, we have succeeded. We have succeeded. For me, it's a symbol of what makes working at Deutsche Welle and what makes working in international media in general so incredible fascinating. It enables inspiring encounters with people from different places, backgrounds and cultures, and their different views and perspectives. Every year, we spend these 3 days bringing intercultural dialogue to life. Friendships have formed here, and they have grown. My dear friends from around the world I can assure you, I will miss you. Thank you for being here. Have a kind participation in the reception of the Deutsche Welle and a good flight home, and take the weather with you. It's a wonderful weather. Thank you for being here. Goodbye.
Ist noch jemand in der Regie? Conny braucht.
Ladies and gentlemen, for those of you who are leaving, could you just quickly check your bags whether you still might have one of those translation devices that had been